I heard about Mdundo quite early. So I met Martin years ago, actually in the UK, when he was in ISEC. I was also in ISEC. I think he was the president of his uni, which was, I think, City College or something like that. I was president of ISEC Southampton. And then one day I was at one of these bars around, and I think it was Brew Bistro before. That was one of the first offices. And I saw Martin, I was like, hey man, what are you doing here in my country? And he's like, I have a startup. And of course he told me about it, and I thought it was a brilliant idea. And I've been with Mdundo ever since.
I'm not 100% sure if I met Martin or if he sent me an email. But I am very sure that I was very skeptical, because it was the same time that other players were in the market. I was managing Sauti at the time, and a lot of people wanted a lot of stuff from us, and a lot of people wanted stuff and would not want to give stuff back, also known as money. So people wanted to have their music in their catalogs, but they didn't want to pay us for it. And so I was extremely skeptical when I met Martin. And I remember having a meeting about the contract, and I basically gave it back to him with my notes. And my notes said, I want more money, I want a higher percentage, I want you to have less control. And basically, we're not going to do this unless you say yes to everything I say. And then he said, yeah. And then eventually we came to an agreement. And that was actually very exciting, because I've always really liked Martin. Like, for me, it was a big part of me agreeing to sign, the catalogs with Mdundo, was that Martin has a vision, and he still has a vision, and he's living that. 1, 2, he's very authentic. Like, he says and he does. He says what he does and he does what he says. And at that time, it was really just him. So, and then, Chico was there also quite quickly, and we knew Chico's sister from the creative industry, and that gave us a lot of trust too.
How I got to hear about Mdundo. So when I was in university a couple of years ago, I knew I wanted to pursue 2 things. One is a career that's very different from music, and the second one was something music related. So during my escapades in university, like anyone else, I came across Mdundo through a third-party reference, and they said there's a music platform that's doing something really cool, and they're recruiting interns.
Mimi nilifahamu Mdundo muda mrefu kidogo, miaka mingi, kwa sababu nilikuwa kwenye music industry for almost 15 years. So nilifahamu Mdundo muda mrefu kidogo, lakini kabla sijaanza biashara na baada ya kuanza biashara, most of the time mimi napenda kufanya kazi na kila mtu. Kufanya kazi na local company, lakini pia international company. Lakini kama Mdundo, niliona pia artist ambao tuko nao maybe wanashindwa kulifikia lile jukwaa, lakini kuna baadhi ambao wanaweza kulifikia lile jukwaa, lakini hawana upana wa kuelewa jinsi ya kufanya promotion, jinsi ya ku-upload nyimbo zao kwa wakati na vitu kama hivyo. Kwa hiyo kipindi fulani wakati tunajaribu kupanuka, lakini pia tunajaribu kufanya kazi na kila mtu, tuliweza ku-approach Mdundo na kujaribu kuwaweka artist wetu wote ambao tunafanya nao kazi kwenye lile jukwaa. Na nakumbuka wakati tunajaribu kuanza kufanya kazi na Mdundo, kulikuwa kuna wasanii wengi wanafanya kazi pale na wanaweka kazi zao pale, lakini nafikiri mimi naweza nikasema mwamko kwa wakati huo haukuwa mkubwa, kwa sababu maybe watu walikuwa hawaamini kwenye local platform, lakini pia kwa kipindi hiko pia local platforms zilikuwa na audience yake. Kwa hiyo tuliweza kuwa podcast na tuliweza kuona mabadiliko after pale.
I don't know when, but I opened up a Facebook of JoJo Records and put my phone number, and somebody called me and introduced himself, called Martin, and he told me about Mdundo. And then we arranged to meet in the town, and we met and signed the agreement between JoJo Records and Mdundo. That's how I started working with Mdundo.
Mdundo started in 2012 or 2013. We celebrated 10 years, so 2012. And we started in Nairobi, Kenya. We've been around predominantly to provide music to the African audience, African content, international content to the African audience. And that has been my goal since we started.
Having all our music on a digital platform, it's meaning you can only access it on platform, which is a plus. And limiting in accessing and also downloading, which is a good thing. And also paying and tracking of the content, because once you have your music on Mdundo as Tamasha, it has an imprint. Like if you download it, if you get access to our content, like as Tamasha, we have catalog like Zilizopendwa and Lingala. If the minute you download, it has the Mdundo imprint, so it's still there. And we can be able to trace it. You can be able to see the number of downloads and how people are interacting with your content. So you're able to see what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, where you need to put focus on. And you can see who is practically the most important thing, to see who is consuming your music, which is was the goal at the time. And it's still now.
Yeah, so I think in answer to your question about what my initial thought was, it was just very easy to understand the business model for me as someone who owned a catalog of music, and there is no way of monetizing it. So Martin called me and he's like, hey, you have a catalog sitting in your hard drive that people want, and this is the deal. And I was like, okay, sure, it works. What makes Mdundo endearing to the African music fan is something very simple. It is accessible, it is familiar, it is easy to use, and then it is, Mdundo in Kenya will be the same as Mdundo in Ghana or Nigeria. We're not reinventing the wheel. And then thirdly, data. We are not chewing up expensive data, because in Kenya it may be slightly more expensive but faster. But across Africa, internet is a luxury. So the idea that I can subscribe using an USSD service and something is sent to my phone and I get to hear my favorite song across the continent means it's a product for Africa by Africans.
I think for me, I would say the Mdundo community base definitely has been one of the strongest appealing factors. It's earlier on, I think Mdundo was one of the first organizations that really rallied artists together, for all sorts of various things, whether it was launches and things like that, mixers. And that for me, I think, was always the strongest point of just like really, really rallying community and bringing artists together for this, for us to be able to do things collectively. And I felt like that was really at the heart of Mdundo.
Mdundo is different, and Mdundo has stood the test of time, because the same thing that set us out 10 or 12 years ago is the same thing we want to do now. That access to content, that legality, that structure that we're bringing to the industry. It's a thing that we wanted to do, and we kept it simple. We said, these are the what we want to do, and we're going to keep using it as our guiding force moving forward. Because of hyper-local content, because of the accessibility of the site, the ease of access to the site, we sort of carved a market for ourselves that if you don't have a phone that can work with an app, or the data is a problem, you can use Mdundo. So we've sort of carved a space for ourselves in the industry. We're also very malleable as a company. We kind of move with the times. You understand what the trends are. I know for sure the team is very passionate about who we are and what we do. And so we take it to heart that maybe there's an opportunity in Tanzania to reach an audience in a different way. Maybe there's a different style of content that's interesting. Maybe there are opportunities with media houses that exist that will speak to the audience in a way that no one else is doing it. So we kind of think about, because music is very passionate, it's a very passionate asset. Everyone loves music, right? So if you're going to use that to connect, bring people together, then you will always be relevant, in my opinion. And I think that's a thing that Mdundo has been able to crack.